Okay, so we'll start the review now. So this week we're still going to do the just a summary of the daf. So we'll start from where we started off in the Shiur at the beginning of this week. So Mishum Rabbi Kiva Amru, we had basically a fifth din. The brayso daf based on the base, we had different dinim which applied to Eidim Zayim. The first four were cases where an Eid Zayim doesn't do the regular Kasha Zaman. But the fifth din was a situation where Ein Eid Zayim Mishalem Al Pi Atzman. And Eid Zayim does not pay, does not get punished with Kasha Zaman by his own admission. So what does this mean? It means to say that if he comes to Bezdin and he admits that if he comes to Bezdin and he admits that he was found to be an Eid Zayim someplace else, or two Eidim come to Bezdin and they say that they were found Zayim to be somewhere else, someplace else, they're not Chayiv Kasha Zayim. The reason is because Moida B'Knas Pata. That's what the Gemara explains. Moida B'Knas Pata. And the Gemara says two rayas, which is really one, that it's considered a knas, that the punishment of Kasha Zayim is a knas, because ultimately they didn't do anything. It's not like they caused damage to somebody. Nothing happened as a result. It was Kasha Zayim, but Kasha Asav. Nothing actually happened as a result of their edus, and nevertheless they're chayiv. So it's not a monetary thing. If it was a monetary thing, they would only be chayiv if they actually caused damage. Okay, so the next Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Marav says a statement. Eid Zayim Mishalem Lefi Chelkai. That's the Rabbi Yehuda Marav statement. And the Eid Zayim can pay his portion. So the question is, what does this mean? And the Gemara goes through a number of stages before it gets to its final explanation of what this means. First of all, it suggests that perhaps Eid Zayim Mishalem Lefi Chelkai means that if two Eidim were found Zayimim and they both testified that somebody is chayav 100 zuz, so it means they both pay 50. Each Eid pays 50. In other words, they split up the cost. They don't both have to pay 100. They each pay 50. The Gemara asks now, you can't say such a thing because we have a Mishnah. We don't need an Amoyer Rabbi Yehuda Marav to say this. We have the Mishnah Meshalshim b'Mamavei Meshalshim b'Malkus. We have the Mishnah tells me that when it comes to monetary issues, monetary Eid Zayimim who testified about money matters, that they split up the cost between them. So the second stage of the Gemara says that Taka, we're talking about a situation perhaps where only one of them was found Zayim. He says that can't be either the case Eid Zayim Mishan Fi Chalka, because we've learned Ein Eid, we know that Ein Eid Nas Zayim actually is Zumu Shneim. The whole din of Kasha Zayim only applies when both are found to be Zayim. So Pashat Rabbi Yehuda Marav's statement wouldn't be true if that's the case. Third suggestion is Ba'oimer Eid Sheker Hi'ati, which I'm going to explain it the way that I explained in Shiur, according to the Ritva. Oimer Eid Sheker Hi'ati is a situation where somebody testifies about himself and perhaps even about his friend as well, that I testified falsely. You know, he testifies, and the next day he comes in and what I said yesterday was not true because he's mazim himself. He says that I wasn't there. I couldn't be saying the truth because I wasn't in that place at that time, and therefore I'm an Eid Zayimim. And the Gemara understands that he can pay up as a result. And the chiddush is over here twofold. Number one is that he pays up, despite the fact that he wasn't found Kasha Zayim in a traditional way. And number two is that the regular rule of Ein Eid Zayim, that the Ein Eid Nas Zayim Yuzumu Shneim doesn't apply over here. That only applies in a regular case of where two other Eidim make them Zayim, but not in the case of Oimer Eid Sheker Hi'ati. The Gemara says you can't say that because Kivin Shehigit Shuv Ein Chayzer Magid, which is the way I explained it in Shiur, and there's different ways of explaining it. The way I explained it is Kivin Shehigit Shuv Ein Chayzer Magid, that the Nidoin is not going to be able to get let off the hook as a result of you saying that I lied yesterday, because once you say an edus, you don't have the right to go back on it. Even if we believe you to some degree, and we're going to say that you're chayiv to pay, but it's not kasha zaman, because you can never have a situation where you only plotted to do something to him, because whenever you say edus shakari adti, the nidin is anyway going to have to pay because of kimin shegi shuvei nechay zaman. So finally, the Gemara says two more variations of the same type of tarets. That we're talking about a situation where the Eidim come and say that we were found Zayim in a different bezdin. But only one of them one Eid comes and says that we were found Zayim in a different bezdin. And the Chiddush of Yehuda Marav is Eid Zayim Mishan Lefi Chalka, despite the fact that only one of them is coming to say that he pays Lefi Chalka. That Gemara asks, that can't be, because then it's not Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva says you never pay Kasha Zayim based on your own admission. So Gemara says, yeah, okay, we have to tweak this a little bit. We're going to keep with the same chat in general. We're going to tweak it. We're going to talk about a situation where the Eid doesn't just come and say that I was found Zoimim in the other Bezdin. but he says that was found zoimim, and Bezdin actually was mechayev me money. When Bezdin is mechayev money, so then it becomes not a knas. It's no longer a knas type of payment. Once the Bezdin on mechayev money say you chayev, so then it becomes a chi of mammon. And if you're just telling me what happened in the Bezdin over there, then you can be chayev based on your own admission because it's not knas, it's mammon. And once it's mammon, as I does baldin k'mei edim dami, the principle that a person does have the right and does have the koyach to be mechayev himself in inyoni and mammonus based on his own admission. And the chiddush is that although I might have thought that he's only testifying about himself, he's not testifying about his friend, nevertheless, he still pays his portion. We don't say that this payment of Tasha Zomam only works if the Nidin is getting his full $100, his full amount, which he was, even if there's only one aid around, so he pays the half. So that's the first half of Amud, of the Gimel Amud Aleph. And then we had the Mishnah, which says that two aidim will come along and say that a person divorced his wife. And by extension, they're saying that the man is now chayiv 200 zuz, is chayiv the ksuba, 200 zuz, which is in the ksuba. Anything else that it says in the ksuba that the baal is mechayiv himself to give to the wife in the case of divorce. So that's what they're, and then they found zoim. So the question is, how much should they pay? We can't say that they pay the full 200 zuz because he might have had to pay the 200 zuz anyway. Could have divorced her tomorrow. He could have died in a few days from now, in which case the wife also gets the ksuba. So how do we work it out? So the Gemara said, the Mishnah says, and we'll leave it a little bit open so that we'll say different shatim in the Gemara. The Mishnah says that we estimate how much would a person be willing to pay for this, for the rights of the woman. And based on that, we in other words, how much would a person be willing to, how much could the Baal, how much could the Isha, not going into details, there's two opinions in the Gemara, how much could they sell their rights if someone else will take their rights? And in the case where the woman is divorced, so then he'll get the 200 zuz. And in a case where the Baal dies first, so then he won't get it, or the other way around. So there's two different shatim in the Gemara as to how we estimate it. So one shitta is like the pashtus of the lashon of the Mishnah, which is be'isha. The second opinion in the Gemara, but I'm saying it first because it's the way it sounds. The pashtus in the Mishnah. How much would a person be willing to pay that he should get the 200 zuz in an event that the husband dies or he divorces her? Meaning, how much would a person be willing to pay for the women's rights in the ksuba? Now, obviously, that can't be what the Edom Zayimim pay, because that's not what they're making the husband lose. They're making the husband lose. They're making the husband lose, pay 200 zuz now instead of perhaps paying it later. So what Pshat is according to this is that we shaman be'isha, we work out how much a person will be willing to pay for the woman's right, and the Edom pay the rest, 200 zuz or whatever it says in the ksuba. Deduct the amount of how much the Isha would be able to sell it, because the Isha could sell that portion to the Baal, and the Baal would get the full 200. So basically, what the Baal has in his hand is everything besides for that amount that a person will be willing to pay the woman. That's one pshat. The other pshat is no, but Baal, we don't estimate it that way, which would be a bigger amount. But rather, we base it on how much the husband could sell his rights. How much would a person be willing to pay that he gets to eat the payers of the karka for the moment? He gets the 200 zuz now, and that he gets to keep the 200 zuz in an event that the wife dies first, but he has to pay it up in a case where he divorces, the man divorces or passes away, and that's how much he has to pay. That's the second opinion. The third opinion is a variation of the Isha. The Isha b'ksubasa means that basically it's based on the Isha, but the nichse malug, any possessions that the woman brought into the marriage, even though usually it goes back to her in the case of divorce, since the Eid Zomim can technically claim that we didn't know because it's not written in the shtar how much she brought in, so therefore that's not part of the cheshbon. They don't have to pay the next similar. So that's the second Mishnah, and the second Mishnah in the parak. And the third, now we continue to the next Mishnah. The next Mishnah is a case whereby the Eidim come into a similar situation to before, where the Eidim are coming and saying that Reuven's chayev Shimon 1,000 zuz, he borrowed from him. Nevertheless, Reuven's a gemoida. Reuven agrees that he borrowed 1,000 zuz. What's the difference between what the Eidim Zomim are saying and what the Loiva is saying? The Eidim Zomim are saying that you chayev in 30 days from now, and the Loiva is saying that I'm chayev only in 10 years from now. So we can't say over here that Eidim Zomim, when they found Zomim, have to pay the full 1,000 zuz because he would have to pay the loiva would have to pay the 1,000 zuz anyway. They're not making the loiva lose 1,000 zuz. They're just making him lose the fact that he has 1,000 zuz in his pocket for 9 years and 11 months. So how do we estimate? How do we appraise that? How do we value that? So the Mishnah says that we estimate how much would a person be willing to pay, that he should have the money in his pocket for those 9 years and 11 months, and that's how much the Eidim Zomim pay the loiva. So that's the end of the Mishnah. It says the Gemara uses this Mishnah as a kasha or as a raya to a member of Rabbi Yehuda Mashmul. There's two versions of Rabbi Yehuda Mashmul. The first version of Rabbi Yehuda Mashmul says that somebody who lends money for 10 years, so Shvius comes in the middle. In other words, Shemitah comes along, the din that Shemitah cancels loans. The question is, does Shemitah cancel loans which are already due, or does Shemitah only cancel loans which are already due? But it doesn't cancel out loans which are going to be due soon. In other words, like I borrowed money 3 years before Shemitah, but I only have to pay it up 5 years into Shemitah. So what's the situation? What's the din in such a situation? So the first version of Yehuda Mashmul says that Shvius does cancel. Shemitah does cancel all loans. Doesn't make a difference. Even if the loan isn't due now, but because it's going to be due soon, it's Yichayev. On that, the Gemara asks a kasha from our Mishnah. Then our Mishnah seems clear. You're lending money for 10 years. And nevertheless, it seems like what the Mishnah says is that you do have to, the Eidim Zomim don't have to pay the full loan because he would have to pay anyway. The loiva would have to pay the money out anyway. It's clear that that the loiva has to pay the loan, despite the fact that Shemitah came in the middle. Must be because Shemitah only cancels those loans which are already due, not those loans which are going to be due. How do you fit the Mishnah with Shmuel? The Gemara answers no, because we know already that there are certain situations where Shemitah doesn't cancel out debts. For example, Malval Amashkin and Moitzer Shtroitz of the Bezdin. So in those two situations, so we can say that our mission is talking about those two unique situations whereby Shemitah doesn't cancel out any loan. But the fact about when the loan is due, that's irrelevant. The only thing that's relevant is if it's Malval Amashkin or Moitzer Shtroitz of the Bezdin. In those two examples, Shemitah doesn't cancel out the loans, and that's what our mission is talking about. The second version of Yehuda Mashmul says exactly the opposite, that no, Shemitah only cancels out those debts which are already due, those debts which are going to become due soon, which means they already took place. The halvah took place, but it's not due yet. It's not the loiv is not chayiv to pay yet. Those loans Shemitah cannot cancel. That's what Shmuel says. And according to this version, the Mishnah is not a cash on Shmuel; it's a raya to Shmuel because the Mishnah supports Shmuel. The Mishnah implies that the loan is kayam. And the only thing is that the Eidim Zomim were trying to make him lose having the money for these 9 years and 11 months, but ultimately the loiva would have to pay the debt. Is a raya to Shmuel, and the Gemara says no, there's no raya to Shmuel, no conclusive proof to Shmuel, because we could explain the Mishnah is talking about one of these situations where Shemitah doesn't cancel the loans anyway, such as Malva Mashkan and Moitzer Shtroitz of the Bezdin. The next discussion is a discussion about where somebody makes a stipulation when he borrows money that Shemitah shouldn't cancel the loan. Does it work or does it not work? So we say a member of Rabbi Yehuda Mashmul, again, Shmuel, who says that it doesn't work. You can't make such tonight. Somebody who says that I'm lending you money, Shvius shouldn't cancel the loan, it doesn't work. Now, just the point is that normally the reason why it might work is because you're Dovid Mamai. A person can be moichel money. If I lend you money, I have the right to say, don't pay me back. Similarly, one might think that just like I can be moichel, the malva can be moichel alone, so the loiva can be moichel and say that despite the fact that Shemitah says that I'm not chayiv to you money, I'm at the time of halva, I'm agreeing that I'm going to pay you anyway. So Shmuel, it doesn't work. That's what Shmuel says. So it seems as if Shmuel's saying that someone who makes a t'nai amash kasam b'torah, even with regards to Dovid shabbat mammon, it doesn't work. T'nai batal. So the Gemara asks the kasha that we can't say such a thing because we have a stira. Shmuel somewhere else says that such a type of t'nai does work. When it comes to overcharging, you're not allowed to overcharge somebody. If you do overcharge in certain situations, the whole mecher is batal. Other situations, you have to return the extra money. But be it as it may, there's a din you're not allowed to overcharge, and can you override it with the t'nai? Shmuel says that you can override it with the t'nai. There's a machlokes Rav and Shmuel. Rav says it doesn't work. That you can't say, in other words, at the time of a sale, if I sell you my watch and I tell you that I'm selling it to you on condition that lady, don't come and claim that you overcharged me. Rav says that's no good. He always has the right to claim that he was overcharged. Shmuel says no, it works. So here we have a stira. When it came to Shemitah, Shmuel told me that T'nai doesn't work. And when it came to no, he says T'nai does work. That although the Torah says you're not allowed to overcharge, and if you overcharge a certain din which apply, You can override it by the buyer, the lekeach, agreeing that no, I'm not going to come later with any claims of being overcharged. So it's a steer. How do we miyashav it? So the Gemara Taka answers by saying that we make a distinction between different types of tanoim based on what Rav Anan himself said. Sorry, based on what Shmuel himself said about oinah. That not every time by oinah do I say what we just quoted him saying that that it works, that the t'nai works. It depends what you say. If you say a lashon of ein lecha olay oinah, then it works. If you say a lashon ein boy oinah, then it doesn't work. I'm going to explain the way Tais and other Rishonim explain. The pshat is like this: if you say that if the t'nai is that oinah shouldn't apply, the whole din, you can't say such a thing. The din of oinah applies. But if you say, I'm not saying that the din of oinah doesn't apply, but I'm just saying you won't come with a claim on me of overcharging. That we can make it tonight. That we have the right to be moichel. And that's why it works. So we say the same thing applies to Shemitah, but it depends on the situation. The situation that Shmuel was saying, where we quoted him earlier by saying that it doesn't work, if you look at the lashon that Shmuel uses, Shmuel says, the Shemitah shouldn't cancel the loan. That you don't have a right over. You can't say the Shemitah shouldn't cancel, Shemitah cancels the loan. Were you taka to say it differently? Were you taka to say in such a way that you're not talking about Shemitah, but you're talking about you not claim it, that you're not cancelling the loan, and me having the right to claim the loan, then it does work. And that's taka what the Gemara says. If you say Shvius taka won't cancel, because then you're talking about the person not cancelling the loan in Shemitah. You can't talk about, if you're talking about Shemitah itself, then the t'nai doesn't work. And finally, the last subject of this staff is the subject of stam halva shloshim yom. We know that stam halva shloshim yom. The Brisa says that, and the Amiroim had a discussion whether it applies to all types of loans or only to a milva b'shtar. Rabbi Barakana wanted to say, and he even said this in front of Rav, that no, it only applies to milva b'shtar. The time of an imukayimoi. His reason is, he had a good reason. He explains his reason. That his reason is that a person wouldn't bother to write a shtar, wouldn't go through all the effort to write a shtar if the loan is just for a short amount of time. We'll get the money back. If it's for a while, if it's 30 days or more, so then he would write a shtar. But by milval peh, there's no such svara. And therefore, by milval peh, the guy can come back tomorrow and claim the loan. That's what Rabbi Barakana wanted to say. And Rav told him, no, it's not true. Applies in all sorts of situations, both by milva peh and both by milva b'shtar. Rav didn't explain why he said this, but the Gemara in between says two things. Number one, the Tani Nami Haki. Although Rav said it, it was not just Rav, and it's open to dispute amongst the Amiroyim, but we have a Brisa which supports what Rav says. Although the original Brisa we said doesn't say anything about milva al peh, but this Brisa, there's another Brisa which says clearly that this din applies both to milva b'shtar and to milva al peh. So in connection with this, the Gemara continues by discussing, by bringing conversation between Shmuel and Rav Masna, where Shmuel insisted, and he told him, don't get up until you explain to me what's the mocker for this din. Which din? The din of Rav, that Stam Avah Shloshim Yom applies to all types of Avah. You need a mocker for such a thing. If it would only apply to Mulva B'shtar, you have a good svar, but if it applies to both Mulva B'shtar and Mulva Peh, then the Chora, you need a mocker. So what's the mocker? So he says that the mocker is from the pasuk which talks about Shemitah's Ksofim, about cancellation of loans. There's an extra pasuk, extra wording over there. It says Kor v'shnasa sheva shnasa Shemitah. It says that when a person is worried, the Torah is warning those people who might, as a concern that Shemitah is coming soon, they might not lend out money because Shemitah is going to cancel loans. It says don't do that. You have to lend out money regardless. So when it talks about Shemitah coming close, it says Kor v'shnasa sheva shnasa Shemitah, but L'chor shnasa sheva shnasa Shemitah is the same thing. There's no need to say it twice. So the Gemara over here darshans that the shnasa Shemitah is referring. The extra word Shnasa Shemitah is actually coming to tell you there's another situation where you can't claim loans. Besides for the din that Shemitah you can't claim, the Shemitah cancels loans. Shemitah makes you not be able to claim loans. There's another time when you can't claim loans, which is during the 30 days of the first 30 days of the loan. And in other words, when the pasuk says Shnas Shemitah, it says that there's another year of Shemitah. Besides for Shnas HaSheva, besides for the 7th year when you're not allowed to claim, there's another year of Shemitah when you're not allowed to claim. What's this year of Shemitah? 30 days. Just a second. 30 days is not a year. So the Gemara explains that no, we see the concept of Shloshim Yom B'Shana Chashav Shana, and that's what we're saying, that yes, Shnas Shemitah in Orla, with regards to Orla, that if a tree takes root 30 days before Rosh Hashanah, so when Rosh Hashanah comes, a new year starts. So we see that sometimes 30 days can be considered a year. So we say that over here too, if the in the first 30 days, Shnasa Shemitah, there's a period of time, a Shana, Shloshim Yom B'Shana, which is Chashav Shana, whereby you cannot claim the loan. You have to wait to claim the loan. Okay, we'll stop over here.